If thinking has made you tired, this is not a weakness. It is a consequence of seeing too much. Sometimes, the more a person realizes how much they understand, the less they feel they have truly lived. This is a quiet sentence. It does not shout or demand attention, yet it carries weight simply by existing. Within it, there is a dull, familiar ache, one that resonates the moment it is heard. Some sentences are not meant to teach, they are meant to remind. They name feelings we have carried for a long time without ever articulating them. It is not entirely joyless, but it is far from peaceful. It feels like a truth that has been suppressed, slowly and gently making its way to the surface. The more clearly a person sees the world, the heavier life begins to feel. And at a certain point, awareness stops feeling like a gift and starts to feel like a burden. You notice things others pass by without effort. You question what once felt obvious. You hesitate where others move forward easily. And slowly, a quiet suspicion forms inside you. Maybe understanding life too deeply is the very thing that prevents you from fully living it. This is why intelligent people often feel exhausted without knowing why. Not because their lives are harder, but because their minds never rest. They see every alternative, every contradiction, every hidden motive. And when you see too much, choosing becomes painful. Action turns into doubt. Certainty dissolves. What once felt simple now feels fragile, incomplete, questionable. And without realizing it, you carry a weight that others never notice. Dostoyevsky understood this better than most. His characters are not unhappy because life mistreats them. They suffer because they are too conscious to escape themselves. They do not live on the surface. They sink. They analyze. They question. And as their awareness deepens, so does their isolation. They are not broken by the world, but by the relentless clarity of their own minds. So the real question is not why intelligent people struggle more. The real question is far more unsettling. If thinking less would make life easier, would you be willing to do it, or would that mean losing yourself? So let me ask you this. If you are truly intelligent, why are you so tired? Why do some people feel heavier the more they think? Why do those who see the world more clearly seem to struggle more with living in it? And why do these questions resonate so deeply when we encounter them in the words of an author who lived centuries ago? In Dostoyevsky's works, his characters carry the burden of thought almost as physical pain. They do not experience ordinary unhappiness. Instead, they exist in a heightened state of consciousness that deepens as they think, a state from which they cannot escape. Those who read Dostoyevsky sense this instinctively. His characters are not unintelligent or superficial. On the contrary, they possess sharp minds, powerful intuition, and profound insight. Yet these qualities often imprison them instead of freeing them. Because understanding is not only about the doors that open, it is also about becoming aware of the doors that close. When a person sees every possibility, choosing a single path becomes almost impossible. The result is hesitation, delay, and endless inner debate. Intelligence is usually portrayed as an advantage. We are told that it allows us to analyze better, decide more wisely, and understand life more clearly. But in Dostoyevsky's world, intelligence complicates life rather than simplifying it. As understanding grows, simplicity disappears. What once felt natural begins to feel questionable. People become estranged not only from others, but from themselves. Questions like, why do I feel this way? Is this truly what I want? And what makes me who I am? Become inseparable from the mind. Ignorance is often dismissed, yet it can act as a powerful refuge. Living without questioning too deeply serves as a form of protection for many people. You wake up, meet expectations, and move forward with the truths you have been given. Life feels sufficient as it is presented. But the intelligent person cannot stop there. They are not satisfied with the surface. Driven by instinct, they ask why. And once that question is asked, there is no going back. Dostoyevsky's characters are trapped at precisely this point. They live with questions instead of answers. Why am I alive? Why can't I do what I know is right? Why do I want to be moral, yet harbor dark thoughts? These questions never fully resolve, because human nature itself is contradictory. Seeing this contradiction unsettles inner peace. This is where the connection between intelligence and unhappiness becomes clearer. Intelligent people experience uncertainty more intensely. They see the opposite of every idea and the flaw in every belief. Because of this, committing fully becomes difficult. Every decision contains loss, and being aware of that loss gradually becomes exhausting. No choice feels complete. No path feels entirely right. The narrator of Notes from Underground embodies this struggle perfectly. He is so deeply conscious that he cannot even trust happiness. He questions his own emotions and wonders whether he is sincere or simply deceiving himself. This level of self-awareness does not enlighten him, it torments him. Because once a person starts observing themselves, spontaneity disappears. Letting go becomes impossible. At this point, an important realization emerges. Intelligence is not merely the accumulation of knowledge. It is the ability to see oneself without filters. And when a person truly looks inward, they encounter far more discomfort than comfort. They face their selfishness, their fears, and their moral inconsistencies. This confrontation can be transformative, but it is also deeply draining. In Dostoyevsky's world, pain is not a defect to be avoided. It is an inevitable consequence of being human, and sometimes even a sign of honesty. When people suffer, they drop their masks. They stop decorating their identities and justifying their actions. This is why the most intelligent characters are often the ones who suffer the most. They cannot stay on the surface. They cannot ignore or forget what they have seen. Perhaps you recognize this in yourself. Maybe you have found yourself surrounded by laughter, yet feeling strangely disconnected. Perhaps even when life appears to be going well, something feels missing inside. This absence is rarely external. It exists within, and when it cannot be expressed, it becomes isolating. Deep thoughts often go unanswered, and silence follows. Dostoyevsky's characters are lonely even among crowds. Their inner worlds are filled with questions that many prefer not to confront. They see the fragility of morality, the selfishness embedded in human nature, and the entanglement of good and evil. This awareness does not comfort them. It unsettles them, because they can no longer define themselves with simple labels. They are neither entirely good nor entirely bad. Here, self-deception is no longer possible. And perhaps much of unhappiness stems from this inability to lie to oneself. Certain forms of happiness require simplification, ignoring contradictions, covering questions, pretending that everything is fine. But a thinking mind resists this. It insists on truth, regardless of how uncomfortable that truth may be. So we must pause and ask, is this unhappiness inevitable? Are people who think less truly more peaceful, or simply less aware? And if awareness comes at a cost, is that cost worth paying? Dostoyevsky offers no clear answers, because he understands that human beings themselves are unclear. We seek freedom while longing for guidance. We fear responsibility while craving meaning. The intelligent person perceives this contradiction more vividly, and perhaps that is why life feels heavier to them. If these reflections feel familiar, do not turn away too quickly. What you experience may not be a deficiency, but an excess of awareness, sensitivity, and thought. Yet it is worth asking, is this consuming you, or is it what makes you who you are? Accepting that the very trait that defines you can also wound you is not easy. But in Dostoyevsky's world, sharpness and pain are inseparable. The same blade that clears the way can also cut deeply. Excessive awareness does not simply mean seeing the world more clearly, it means carrying its weight more intensely. The more a person understands, the more responsibility they feel, and the fewer places they find to hide. Distractions may work temporarily, but in solitude, the mind begins speaking again. And it is rarely gentle. It reminds you not of your strengths, but of your weaknesses, your inconsistencies, and your fears. This constant inner reckoning leaves little room for peace. Here lies the dilemma: suppress this voice and live with a surface-level calm, or listen to it and enter a difficult but honest journey. The intelligent person rarely chooses the second path, it chooses them. Every answer leads to a new question. Every certainty creates doubt. Life becomes less linear and more exhausting, yet more authentic. And this unhappiness is not merely destructive. It is also truthful. It is the cost of refusing to say "I'm fine" when you are not. The cost of sitting with emptiness instead of filling it with illusion. This is why Dostoyevsky values suffering, not because it purifies, but because it removes lies. What remains is naked consciousness, both the greatest strength and the heaviest burden. This burden often leads to loneliness. Most people prefer simpler stories, clearer answers, and comforting truths. When you cannot accept these, you naturally feel out of place, as if speaking a different language. Over time, alienation turns inward, and you begin to wonder if something is wrong with you. Dostoyevsky challenges this idea. Perhaps the issue is not that something is wrong, but that you see what others avoid. And this ability is rarely rewarded. So the real question becomes this: do you want to be happy, or do you want to see? Because there are moments when these desires cannot coexist. And perhaps your exhaustion is not proof that you are living incorrectly, but evidence that you are taking life seriously. In Dostoyevsky's world, life is not light, but it is deep. And without that depth, perhaps nothing would truly matter. So I leave you with one final question. Do not answer it immediately. Sit with it for a while. If you thought a little less, would you really be happier, or would you simply be less yourself?